if we don't have something to point to as a party and say, this is what Democrats did, and I think it has to be Medicare for all, if we can't accomplish that kind of package and delivery to working people, the Republican that fills Trump's shoes is going to be like, look, they screwed up again. They didn't do anything for you because they're in bed with all of these special interests.
Welcome back to Left in the Attic. I'm Deep.
And I'm Anna. Today's episode is really important because we are days away from Colorado's June 30th primary. And honestly, for many races in Colorado, the primary is the election. So we're talking about what's at stake, why this moment matters so much, and why, if you've ever felt unrepresented, unheard, or frustrated with politics, now is the moment where we can shape who's actually on the ballot in November. And today we're joined by someone who is very much part of a new wave of progressive organizing and a candidate running here in Denver, congressional candidate Melat Kiros.
Hey.
Thanks for having me, y'all.
Melat is our first repeat guest, so we are super excited to have you back on.
Thank you for having me.
Check out episode 7 if you want to see the first, or episode 6 if you want to check that out. But before we get into our episode, want to talk a little bit more about who's helping sponsor and make this real. So today's episode is brought to you by Rentell, a company Anna and I are really excited to partner with. If you're a renter in Colorado, this could save you time and money. Every time you apply for a place, you're paying a new application fee for the same screening. Same info, same checks, new fee. Colorado passed a law to help with that. It lets you reuse a screening report when you apply. It's called a Portable Tenant Screening Report, or PTSR. The catch is it's not easy to use. Some folks are charging $99 for the reusable fee, but not our friends at Rentell. Options are limited, tools are clunky, and it can cost the same as applying. So that's where Rentell's working on. Rentell helps you create one verified screening report for $35, and you can reuse it up to 30 days. So you're not paying for the same screening again and again. Check them out at rentell.com, RENTELL.com.
Ayo.
It's awesome.
Great. Well, thank you for that ad read, Deep.
We love them. And now, you've already heard her voice, but going to give you a little bit more formal introduction. Melat Kiros is a progressive organizer and first-time congressional candidate running for Colorado's 1st congressional district, which overlapped entirely with Denver. Her campaign is centered on housing affordability, economic justice, grassroots organizing, and challenging establishment politics from the left. She's part of a growing national wave of candidates pushing the Democratic Party toward a more people-centered agenda. Melat also featured episode 6, and we've talked to her a couple times before this, but welcome back to the pod.
Thank you. I'm excited to be here again.
Yeah, we're super excited to have you. And this is going to be untraditional to most of our episodes because since we've already had Melat on, we know her origin story, we know why she's running. Yeah. We've had a huge talk about money and politics, which again is episode 6. And so today we really want to talk more about the fact that the primary, again, June 30th, is the election.
Yeah.
Because Colorado is mostly blue. And so we know that Democrats will likely win most seats come the election in November. But the real question is, do we want progressive Democrats that we feel like represent our values to win in November? Or do we want establishment corporate Democrats that have been already in office for, let's say, 30 years, like the incumbent that Melat is challenging? And so we decide who's on the ballot, and we decide that literally this month. Deep, what do people need to know?
So ballots will be mailed out starting about June 8th, so you can expect them in your mailbox on June 8th or anywhere around then, and then you can turn them in at any time up to June 30th. I think 80 to 90% of people actually fill out their ballots at home, and then they just go to a drop box, and you can go, we'll link this in the show notes, you can find out where your local drop box is, and you can just drop them off. About 10% of people, for whatever reason, they actually go vote in person, so you can do that. If you are an unaffiliated voter, this is very important. Unaffiliated people can vote in a Democratic primary, and oftentimes if you haven't selected your preference, you will get 2 ballots in the mail. You will get a Republican ballot and a Democrat ballot, but you can only fill out one. So in our opinion, you should vote for the Democratic ballot, and we'll have a bunch of preferences for you. You fill that out and you can turn it in. So that's a little bit about the logistics about how election month works here in Colorado.
We will be releasing a Left in the Attic ballot guide for both primaries and in November.
Yes.
And we're actually collecting ballot guides from everybody else. In 2024, I actually did this ballot guide grid, which I took up everybody's different ballot guides and I put them in one area. So, of course, you'll get our preferences and our ballot guides, but we'll also throw in DSA's ballot guide or unions ballot guides or other groups and organizations so you can see where people are kind of lending their support.
Yeah, which I think makes it easy. And actually, one thing that you can also do, and we'll plug this at the end for a call to action, I've already been invited to, this is my first ever like ballot party where everybody brings their mail-in ballot and we all fill it out together.
I love that.
So yeah, so if you like to
have to do
host,
that.
you should host a ballot guide, you know, fill them out or bring them to the park, do something fun. And to Deep, you said that people can vote in person. Is that only on June 30th or is there? Okay, yeah, tell us
Early
more.
voting starts a week out, right?
Yes, so you can vote in person. I think it's about a week out. We'll put the exact dates in the show notes. But you can go to your local polling areas and start voting in person as well. Or if you need something corrected on the record or you just moved to Denver, you can still vote.
Okay, but the last day to either drop your ballot off at the ballot boxes or vote in person is June 30th.
June 30th at 7 o'clock.
Okay, perfect. And do you actually know, okay, I heard this number, but I don't know if you can confirm, that only 7% of people nationwide vote in primaries?
Yeah, so it's very, very low across the nation. It's under 10%. Colorado is a very unique state in terms of we have actually one of the highest voter participation rates. It's usually between us and Minnesota. So in November years, sometimes Denver in Congressional District 1 is getting up to 80% voter turnout, which is pretty super high in terms of the nation. Yeah. Our primaries also skew a little bit high, but it's super low in comparison. So it's sometimes on a really, really like active year, it's 25%. 26%. And on lower years, it's still down here at 13%, 12%, 15%.
Wow.
So it's a very small number. So this is a very big bang for your buck.
Yeah. Like your vote really, really counts if you participate in the primaries. So Deep. And then what if somebody, let's say that I listened to the episode and I decide to tell all my friends about it, people at the supermarket, King Supers, whatever, that, hey, primary is June 30th, and they're like, oh, I'm not actually registered to vote. Like, can they register and vote in the primary even though it's already June?
Colorado has same-day registration, so yes, you can still do it. A little bit different than the caucus process that we talked about or the assembly process where you have to be registered at a certain time. This, you can go register same day, and you don't have to register as a Democrat to vote in the Democratic primary. Again, you can be unaffiliated. Okay. So either unaffiliated or Democrats can vote.
Cool. So you would go online. You can probably Google this, how to register to vote in Colorado.
We'll put it in the show notes.
Fabulous. Okay, so you can register and vote. No excuses. June primary, June 30th. It's coming up. And now we want to talk with Melat a little bit about running against the establishment. So Deep, you want to kind of set up this race, because my favorite fact about this race is that Melat is not yet 30. You just had a birthday, right?
I did. I just turned 29.
Hey.
We love that. And DeGette, who she's running against in CD1, Congressional District 1, has been in office for over 30 years. So
It'll be 30 years at the end of her term.
Oh, 30 years at the end of her term.
So your entire life.
Yes.
So give folks the context, Deep. What do you know?
Yes, so Diana DeGette has been in this office for 30 years, even longer than her past predecessor who willingly passed the torch. DeGette has decided not to pass the torch, wants to run again. She keeps saying she'll one day retire, but who knows? If you're in for 30 years, why not be in it for 50 years? So, again, Diana DeGette, an incumbent, been there for a long time. She's sort of become an institution in Denver, but in my opinion, she's been dropping the ball. She really has never extended to any committee positions. Pretty entrenched incumbent. Melat Kiros, first-time candidate, running in a very progressive bold thing, backed by Democratic Socialists of America, Justice Democrats. You kind of come out of nowhere. Yeah. And we won the assembly process. We talk about that in our March Madness episode. Check that out. But you've been thrust into almost the national scene. You are getting a lot of national endorsements. You've gone on Hasan Piker show now. Chris Rabb, who just won an upset primary in Pennsylvania, has also endorsed you. So this race that a lot of my political consultant friends were like, oh, this is a long shot. Yeah. No chance whatsoever. Now, the betting markets where people can say they're good or bad has you almost at even odds of beating DeGette.
Yeah.
And I think I've missed some stuff there, but like in general, how does that feel? You're now neck and neck.
I mean, it feels, these political consultants that you're talking about said this to my face, right? Like I had a lot of people laughing in my face at the idea of me running against DeGette and
we can say that was deep at the very beginning.
Should we say it deep? Deep actually was one of my naysayers in the beginning.
The very beginning. He's made up for it now.
He has. Tenfold.
To be fair, I said
Let's expose him.
I actually
Put him at the
said you
stake.
might have an easier time running against Hickenlooper. I said you might have an easier time running against Hickenlooper,
which wasn't legal,
than DeGette, but you were under 30.
I was under 30.
You couldn't even run for the
Not
US Senate.
legal to do that. No, yeah,
but
obviously
you proved me wrong and everybody else wrong.
Yeah, I mean, it's been wild, the wildest ride, the craziest thing I've ever done, the craziest experience. But it also is not something that I would have embarked on if I didn't think it was possible, right? Like, this is the most anti-incumbent cycle ever. We saw Democrats fail again with their centrist playbook on a scale that literally is costing us potentially our democracy now with this fascist in the White House. And there has to be a change. People are ready for a change. And so, has it been absolutely nuts? Definitely. But I also am like, the only reason I decided to run is because I knew that this was possible, right? Mm-hmm. Because I know that there is a hunger in the electorate for a change in leadership and a change in direction as a party and as a country. And I think we're seeing that now in just the strength of the grassroots movement we've been building.
Yeah. And I would love to know a little bit more about what your experience has been, though, like so far running as, a progressive, I want to say, quote unquote, outsider, especially against someone who's been, you call it, part of, what did they say, like part of the machine?
Yeah,
what
essentially.
Yeah, I'm going up against the machine.
Yeah.
Without question. What I will say that I've been kind of reflecting on this recently. I think it worked to my advantage that they underestimated this campaign for so long, right? Even just thinking about the caucus process and how we were able to come in and come this close to keeping her off the ballot entirely because of how entitled she was to the process and the expectation that she was just going to cruise through. And some of that entitlement, I think, is still there. That I think has been able to help us in that we don't have to worry about, tens of millions of dollars being thrown at us because they immediately thought that we had a fighting chance, right? Being able to do that work underground and have these conversations just face to face, neighbor to neighbor, talking about what we want in our representation. Because, you were talking about how this is the election in Denver, right? It's going to be the Democrat that wins no matter what. And I think when we're deciding what kind of Democrat we want to represent us, I think we're also deciding what kind of future do we want. And I think the thing that I've been up against the most hasn't been the establishment per se, because they've really just underestimated us this entire time, but rather has been, I think, people's reluctance to, have the audacity to believe that we could do better than this, right? I think, the capitalism, I think that the establishment, I think that all of these powers that be have succeeded for so long because they've convinced people that this is just how it is. Like, these things are unchangeable. It's too hard to be able to get health care for all. It's too hard to be able to get affordable housing. And so you just have to take what we're giving to you. And that kind of reluctance to believing that things could be better if we just tried, right? Because we haven't actually tried. Even just thinking about how low our voter turnout has been. Yep. Like, we've never actually all come together and said, no, I'm going to actually vote for what I want. I'm not going to vote by gaming the system. I'm not going to vote for who I think is going to be the most likely to win or who I think, they tell me is the right person to go for. I'm going to vote for my values. And that's what we've been trying to convince voters to do. And I think we'll see on June 30th, but I think we've been succeeding in that mission.
So I have to ask, knocking on these doors, talking to these voters, and I see you at these events, hundreds and hundreds of people. Has there been any salient issue that you think has come across the most? Or is it like this whole package that you're talking about?
Can I give you a top 3?
Yes.
Okay. I think the one that I think lands the most with everybody across the board is ICE. Like, what are we doing about ICE? This is a city that, our polling shows that, over 80% of Denverites want our leaders to be calling to abolish ICE. It's a rogue paramilitary force that is responsible for the murder of over 30 people. So that's been really salient, I'd say. The data centers has been huge, right? And I would consider the data centers to be kind of wrapped up in this privacy issue at large as well. Talking about Palantir, talking about the development of AI and just what that means for our futures has been there. But really, the thing that I think every single person I've spoken with has had a really passionate response to is talking about corruption and talking about the money and politics issue in particular. The thing that I think we have struggled with as a movement is to actually identify solutions beyond just reversing Citizens United. Like that, obviously that's something we have to do, but that requires a constitutional majority, and no one has actually laid out a game plan for how are we going to build towards that constitutional majority, right? Even there was an article that came out recently about the PAC orgs and Citizens United and how they've kind of fallen off the mainstream, and like we don't really know what they're doing, what their plans are, how they're really organizing on this front. They're mostly just doing like paper endorsements, it looks like now. And again, that's the mission of the machine, is to make folks think that it's not possible to get this done, but it absolutely is. And I think I've literally witnessed people become so much more animated about the issue when I talk about here's the game plan, here's how we get this done, and to know that stuff. There's specifically that.
I know, speaking of which we're going to talk about this more in another episode, but the Montana plan.
Yes.
Have you heard of it?
I love the Montana plan.
It's so cool. Do you want to just tell people really fast, like, what it is? Because this gives people, it gave me so much hope learning about it. Because we talked a little bit about Citizens United in our first episode with you, which I think it would be helpful just to remind people, like, what that is. And if you want to just give a brief overview of the Montana plan.
Yep.
Yeah, for sure. Correct me if I'm wrong on any of this, but from my understanding of what Montana is...
Wait, really first, quick, what Citizens United is.
Oh,
for
sorry,
folks
yes.
that aren't familiar.
Yes, Citizens United specifically allowed it so that corporations could give in campaigns. And if you're giving to a candidate directly, there are still limits on how much you can give. So I think for PACs, it's like $5,000 is the max. For individuals, $7,000 split between the primary and the general. But if you are not giving directly to the candidate, if you are giving to an issue or a cause, it's unlimited giving. And it also opened up this back door for dark money giving as well. But what are they, 501c3s, I think?
501c4s.
501c4s. And so it really just unlocked unlimited spending in these campaigns. And the idea was that if you're not giving it directly to the candidate, and if you are giving it to a cause and you're specifically not giving it, not coordinating with the candidate, then it can't be bribery, right? It can only be bribery if there's like a direct quid pro quo.
Yeah, Supreme Court basically said unless you're directly bribing it, it's just speech.
Yeah, and we know that's not true because, like, for example, red boxes, right? This is something I learned about as a candidate, and it's one of the ways that candidates communicate with super PACs. And you describe what you want the message to be. You describe who the target is. You give links to folders with images, videos, all the things. All of these candidates do this now.
It's like literally like a link on a candidate's website. Sometimes it's labeled red box, or it'll just be labeled like photos.
Outlined in a red box.
And then you click it, and so when you click it, you'll see like all like the candidate walking next to an elderly person, candidate walking next to a train, candidate walking, messaging, all that kind of stuff. And they're like, oh, well, that's just for public people. It's for media. But what it actually is... Yeah.
It's for the super PACs. Yep. They go to the red box. They're like, all right, here's our direction. This is what we need to do. If we want this candidate to win, or if you have unaligned super PACs, sometimes they might look and like try and reverse engineer it and identify ways that they can actually hurt the candidate with some of their attack ads as well. And, that's just the name of the game now, right? Wow. Like the way it works is in order to compete right now, truly compete with the money that we're up against, you have to be engaging in some of these tactics. And that is what Citizens United specifically did, is it unlocked all this unlimited spending, and it forced people into these really ridiculous ways to communicate with super PACs outside of the, general direct communication. And that's where they get all the information that they need. They post all the videos, they produce all the things, and they spend millions and millions of dollars on these advertisements. And so that's specifically on like the super PAC side.
So just to make sure that everybody gets it, because I was brand new to learning about what Citizens United was. I learned about it in our first episode with you. But this allowed, corporations to get involved in politics, essentially. For corporations to spend millions of dollars against or for a candidate of their choice through, like, indirectly. And you're saying like running ads either on an issue to support a candidate or against a candidate. And this is where they get in that red box images of a candidate that they can create their own commercials, using their corporate dollars to run those ads on TV, because it's obviously super expensive to do so. And so This
and
allowed-
oftentimes, I'll also add, because I think it's important, these companies or these groups don't actually have to be authentic to whatever goal it is they really have, right? So, for example, one of the things that we saw happening in Illinois' ninth race was AIPAC running a lot of these shell PACs. One of them was called Elect Chicago Women. And it was running ads that mentioned nothing about Israel, mentioned nothing about Gaza or anything that was happening, but was just this very generic pro-women thing. But you know that it's being given to a particular candidate because of that particular candidate's issues and how they align with the organization of AIPAC. And because they can, avoid labeling themselves as they are, they go into this different group. It's incredibly misleading and incredibly, manipulative of the electorate as well. And so part of the other problem is this lack of transparency that comes with the unlimited spending that they do.
Yeah.
We talked about this in a previous episode too, how like Elon Musk helped set up the RBG PAC, like the Ruth Bader Ginsburg PAC that basically lied about Trump's views on abortion and ran anti-Kamala Harris things essentially. So very nefarious. But there is a solution to this. There is some hope out here.
Yes.
So
We
to
love the hope.
get corporate money out of politics, the Montana plan.
So what the Montana plan does, which is really incredible, but again, this is specifically to corporations. This doesn't apply to the Elon Musks of the world, unfortunately, but this is still a really, really huge step. And what the Montana plan does is Citizens United is predicated on this idea that corporations have personhood, right? And so what Montana said is, okay, bet corporations aren't people anymore. Like it just undercut Citizens United entirely from underneath it, and now allows them to pass laws, or will allow them to pass laws that put spending caps on corporations, or might even just prevent them from spending entirely.
And it's going to be a ballot campaign. So Montanans will vote on this in November.
Okay.
And Montana's a pretty red state. It's had Democratic senators and governors before, but it's pretty red, if not maybe just purple. So if they can pass this in November in Montana, this is something we can pass all across the nation, including Colorado. Phil Weiser and Javier Mabry, both past guests, they did a op-ed, and I believe the Denver Post or the Colorado Sun, one of them, did an op-ed in them talking about how we could have a Colorado version of this as well.
And, one of the other things I've heard from some of the Montana organizers is that this is also intentionally, they're hoping to go to the Supreme Court into calling this into question as well. Because obviously, if the ballot measure passes, corporations and proponents of their spending in these campaigns are going to sue, and this is probably going to end up at the Supreme Court again, and then we might have another question of this, which is why it's going to be really, 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 really important that we get a trifecta again, that we get a Democratic president, and that we reform the Supreme Court. Because if we have that 6-3 majority when this question comes before the Supreme Court again, we're screwed.
We're cooked.
Yeah.
And the last thing I just wanted to end, we'll end on a high note with the Montana plan, is that it is hopeful that it will pass in Montana, even though it's mostly a red state. I think Citizens United is like 80% of people.
90% of people want to get money out of politics and reverse Citizens United.
Yes. So if it can pass in a red state, it can pass anywhere. And the whole point of this Montana plan is that it really it states taking back power over corporations, which they have the ability to do so. So we might not be able to reverse Citizens United at the federal level or nationally, but we can do it state by state.
Yeah.
And so we're seeing a glimmer of hope. And so speaking of hope, there is a larger national progressive movement where we have progressive younger candidates running against longtime either incumbents or more corporate Democrats. And I know that you were just recently part of like a big event that was happening in California.
Yeah. It was a lot of fun.
Yeah. Wait, tell us more about that.
Yeah. So Shoykat Chakrabarty is running for Congress in California's 11th district, I think. It's Nancy Pelosi's current district. He hopped into the race when she still hadn't announced whether or not she was going to be running for re-election. So he was challenging her. She very quickly decided to retire. Shoykat is somebody who's been moving in the progressive circles for, like over a decade now. He was part of Justice Democrats, one of the co-founders. He was AOC's chief of staff. He has been working on progressive policies and platforms and just helping candidates for a really long time, and decided to run himself against Nancy Pelosi. He has been using his platform to help uplift a lot of other candidates who need more of those resources and need the help on fundraising. And so He had a rally a few weeks ago. The theme of the rally was change the party, right? Like, we know that things have to change. And the quickest way that we can make those changes is by deciding what kind of Democrats we're sending into power. So all of us are endorsed by Justice Democrats, which is an organization that started out after Bernie's first presidential run. And it was just a bunch of people that were like, we need more working class people in Congress. We need people that actually are ready to like speak truth to power and start fighting for a lot of these really serious changes. And so that's where the squad really emerged from as well. And they've still been doing this work every single cycle. And this cycle is one of the biggest slates that they've endorsed in recent years. And so a bunch of us are running in different districts. Sunrise is hosting the call, and we're just going to be talking about how do we change the party. You know, like we have these values, particularly as young people, as young progressive people, as young socialists. Like, what is the path forward to changing the party? And that's what we're going to be talking about together. The camaraderie that is among a lot of these candidates that I'm regularly in contact with has been really, really meaningful to the movement, because one of the questions I always get is, how do things change? Like, how are we actually going to get this done? How do we get money out of politics? And I'm super clear about what it's going to take. It's not going to be easy by any means, right? And actually, the way I describe it, I'm stealing a little bit from Congresswoman DeGette, because I remember we were at an event and she was talking about how she worked with some of her colleagues to really clear out the anti-choice Democrats that were in Congress when she first got there 30 years ago. I remember she described having there were still 30 or 40 of them that were in the caucus that were Democrats that were anti-choice. And one by one, they picked them off and said, you do not reflect the values of our party. You are not reflecting the values and the freedoms that women are deserving of over bodily autonomy. So you got to go. That's what we're doing with anybody who is in bed with these special interests, with these corporations, one by one. We're going to clear you out from the party as well.
Yeah.
No, I mean, that's a good point. It's like everyone's like, oh, well, this is just Denver. Melat's just like one person. How's this going to change the whole thing? No, we are one part of a much larger machine.
And
right?
I'd argue an important part too, right? Yeah. Like, we have a responsibility, I think, in districts as blue as ours to make sure that we are sending people who are not, the safe bet, right? Like, we know for a fact a Democrat is going to win. So why aren't we fighting for someone who's going to push the envelope?
It's like the 10th or 11th safest seat in America now. Yeah. A little bit different after gerrymandering, but it's like the youngest congressional district in America, has one of the highest educated populaces of any congressional district. So it's like, it truly can be a very left-wing hotbed. Yeah. Send someone to Congress to push the envelope.
Mm-hmm. Yeah. And we're talking about Congressional District 1, which is basically all of Denver.
All of Denver. Yeah. Okay. And again, if we're talking about Denver and Colorado at large, we have universal pre-K. We have term limits. In Denver alone, we have publicly financed elections. These are our values as Denverites, is strong democratic guardrails that can ensure that the people that we're sending into Congress are protected from the corrupting influences that infiltrate into power and are actually reflecting our values in a meaningful way. And so we have an opportunity to actually make a real difference here, one by one, right? It's going to take, a broad coalition for us to build this together, but we have to start building towards it. We can't just keep talking about it and complaining about the corruption and the money in politics. We have to actually do something about it.
Yeah. And actually, okay, I have a question for you, because I was at a community event and someone asked me, or they told me, they said, I don't understand why people are pushing for all these progressive candidates, because even if they get elected, they're not going to be able to pass anything because they don't know how to work across the aisle, yada, yada. Yeah. And anyways, what would you say to somebody who kind of had that same concern?
Yeah. Well, one, I don't think the ability to work across the aisle has anything to do with institutional experience, right? I think it actually mostly has to do with your values and whether or not you're willing to make that first step in having a conversation with somebody who maybe doesn't immediately share your worldview and your ideology. And, my philosophy has always been that no one ever believes that they're the enemy. Everybody believes that they're doing the right thing in service of a shared goal that I think we all have. Even Republicans, I think, believe that they're fighting for a world where everybody can live with freedom and prosperity. They just have a very different idea of what the process is to get there, obviously. But because that is our ideally our shared goal, there's always ways to bridge those divides and have those conversations if you're willing to have them. And I think the thing that we're up against isn't the ability to have those conversations. It's that there's this really, really like massive elephant that's standing in the middle of that table that's preventing those kind of conversations from happening. And that elephant is the money in politics. It's the one that says, even if you two come together and have a conversation and maybe find something that could be beneficial to everyone in both of your districts, we are going to wield our money and we're going to wield our influence to prevent that from being able to happen, because that actually undercuts our profits. And because we've engineered our campaign finance laws in a way that allows us to be able to do whatever we want here, it doesn't matter that you've been able to come together and figure something out, because there is room in our coalition. There is room in the Democratic Party, because we, as the base of voters, I'm not talking about leadership. I'm not talking about the DNC or anything. The voters themselves have been incredibly united on a lot of these issues, right? Like over 80% of voters want an arms embargo in Israel. Over 90% of voters want to make sure that we get money out of politics. Over 80% of Democratic voters support, like Medicare for all. Like, we're really, really strong on these issues. It's the party leadership that has failed to keep up with us. But again, it's the money piece, right? It's not the ability to do bipartisanship work. It's the ability to wipe it away with the money that people are wielding.
Yeah, that's a really helpful distinction. Wait, do you want to say?
Yeah, that really reminds me of like a story. So I was knocking doors for you, and I was talking to a gentleman, older black gentleman here in Denver, knocking on his door, and he's come across in the database as a strong Democrat. So I'm like, oh, he's probably going to be, I'm here to pitch for Melat, knock on the door. He's like, listen, I have always voted for Democrats no matter what. And he's like, as a black man in America, I understand that I probably wasn't going to get health care from you all, that my roads maybe were never going to get fixed, and my schools were never going to be funded. But I still voted for Democrat because I thought they were trying to do something. But he's like, this last election I sat out, didn't vote. And he's like, because I saw that the same money that you said you couldn't use for schools or couldn't use for health care, you did take that money rapidly, as fast as you could, and you send it for bombs overseas. And he's like, that was my breaking point. He's like, I realized that you do have the money. You can do things. You can move as fast as you want, but just not for me. Yeah. And I was like, wow, I knocked on the right door. Let me tell you about Melat Kiros. It was cool, but he put it so blatantly. Like, a lot of people are like, oh, well, people who vote on Palestine are one-issue voters. And I'm like, it's not a one-issue voter, right? For him, it was the straw that broke the camel's back, right? It was the issue that gave clarity to everything, that the people who fund bombs to kill kids overseas are never going to give me health care. And it ties to that whole corruption piece you just said.
100%.
And I should send him this episode.
You should. Let him know. And also, I think the thing that is really frustrating for a lot of Democratic voters right now who have been, I think, drinking the Kool-Aid and have been like, we're up against Trump, like we just have to do everything that we can to just get by, are finally getting fatigue, right? Like, we've been on defense this entire time, and I think people are starting to remember this isn't what politics and governance is supposed to look like. Like, we're supposed to be fighting for something. What are we fighting for? And I think once people start asking that questions, that they also come to the same conclusions as well, right? As any working class person will see, because I think black people have had that relationship with the party for a really long time, right? But I think working people, particularly working white people, are starting to realize, oh, okay, so this was never about actually being able to do anything for working people, right? In fact, you've been working against working people's interests this entire time. But again, when we're talking about things like Housing First, when we're talking about Medicare for All, when we're talking about transit, these are all programs and policies that are not just based in the value that we should all have these things because these are basic human rights in a modern world. They're also the most pragmatic and economical things to do, right? It is cheaper to just give people housing than to let people be homeless. It is cheaper to give people primary care and quality health care than to let them get sicker and then pay on the back end for all the treatments and the surgeries that are going to come as a result of it, right? Like, it is cheaper to invest in community development and to invest in after school programs and to just invest in people having things to do and having true economic security than to pay for the crime that inevitably rises as a result of people being in dire economic circumstances. Like, we know that these things work, right? Beyond just being the right thing to do, they are the most pragmatic thing to do. And I think what centrists and moderates have been able to do for a really long time is bastardize and co-opt this idea of like, they're the ones that are being serious, right? The leftists are being idealistic. They're just being silly, and like, they're not really thinking this through. And it's like, no, what you're pushing for is actually just Band-Aids that are going to allow this rot to spread even further until it completely destroys our economy. Like, we are literally in a K-shaped economy now. This is not sustainable by any measure. And so I do really push back against this idea that, you know, our policies and our platforms are radical, right? Like, they are actually, this is pragmatism, what we are fighting for. It is the most realistic and wise thing to do, to just give people the things that they need in the face of a world that is changing rapidly as a result of things like climate change and AI and insane wealth inequality. Yeah.
No, and I think this is actually the perfect segue before we get into our call to action. So I have seen too, amongst older voters, I guess, just, you know, there's a little bit of a generational gap, you know, and I think some older Democrats in Colorado who voted for John Hickenlooper, you know, when he was in his prime or younger, and Bennett.
Yeah, when he first ran in like the 2000s. So yeah,
you know, but like older Colorado Dems who like Diana DeGette, Michael Bennett, and John Hickenlooper, like, were their Democrats at that time, like
the late 90s.
No, and you know, like, as us younger folks are now, like, you know, talking about wanting more progressive candidates, I can sometimes feel when I'm having these chats in person that I think not that they feel like it's an attack on them, but like they feel that we're like divided. And, you know, I think you kind of just mentioned, and I know we talked about this a lot in the first episode that we had you on, which is that like, we are entering an economy, for those that, I guess I'm 33, but if I were like 22 and graduating undergrad, but you know what I mean? Like, the younger folks these days are entering a world that looks so different than the generations that came before us. And so I'm just kind of,
and what they were promised as well.
Yeah, what they were promised. And so I'm just really curious, you know, like, what would you say to some of those older Colorado Democrats who, it's not like we're trying to step on their toes. It's nothing against them when we say that we want something new, but trying to kind of explain to them, you know, like, where we're coming from.
Yeah. I think it's twofold, right? I think without question, there is a generational divide and a generational shift that's happening, right? I think that's important for us to acknowledge. And I think it's important to acknowledge that it's there for a reason. You know, the boomer generation is one that, when they were our age, enjoyed a lot of public benefits, right? Like, they're basically everything. And, you know, there was so much security in being able to build a dignified life. There was so much security in knowing that you would have retirement benefits and social security, and being able to send your kid to a good school without it costing you taking out a lifetime of debt. Like, it was very easy to be able to access the middle class lifestyle if you worked hard, right? Like, that was the promise, is like, you put in the work, you do the 40 hours or whatever, and you can buy a car, you can buy a home, you can send your kid to college, you can go on a family vacation. Like, you can really live the American dream. And then as they started getting older and a little wealthier, they started realizing that that lifestyle was from taxes that were being paid by people that were wealthier.
And they pulled up every ladder.
And they got into positions of power and took that back and said, nope, I actually don't want to be paying as much in taxes. Now that I'm of a higher tax bracket, I want to be enjoying more of these benefits for myself. The fact of the matter is it destroyed the economy for younger people in a way where the promise of working hard no longer delivered the kind of life that they were able to live themselves. And so, you know, being honest about where that divide came from, I think, is really important. But I also think it's important to remember that it wasn't all of them together that made this decision to make it harder for younger people, right? In fact, it was a very minority few people that were in positions of power that made these decisions. And I always tell folks that, you know, I'm 29, I'm going up against a 30-year incumbent, I'm talking about this generational divide and generational shift. And some of my strongest supporters are voters over the age of 65 who recognize the fact that, you know, the older generation did take away a lot of that prosperity and opportunity from younger people and have delivered an economy that really only works for the already rich and has engaged in endless, ridiculous wars and has done nothing to leave a better planet than where they found it. And that's the responsibility of every single generation. And millennials were the first generation to have less than the generation before them ever. Like, that never happened before. It was always supposed to be getting better and better and better. And so we're witnessing the consequences of those actions. And that was because of a certain level of, at best, lack of foresight, and at worst, insatiable greed. And in order for us to reckon with that, we have to call out where the problem started, right? The only reason we're in this mess right now with this fascist administration is because the Biden administration didn't hold Trump accountable in the first place, right? The fact that we didn't prosecute every single person for their crimes. And because we allowed that to continue to fester, it just came back tenfold worse than the first time. And the case that I'm making, particularly to older voters right now who are mostly just concerned about Trump, which is understandable. Like, those are the things that are closest to you that you're worried about. The thing that I tell folks is that, you know, we're going to take back the House, right? Despite what happened to the VRA, we're going to take back the House. It'll be a tight majority, but we'll do it. We might even be able to take back the Senate, right? With Talarico and Plattner right now. And we're definitely going to take that White House in 28 without question. So we're really on track right now for being able to have a trifecta. When we take back that power, it's not about whether we take back that power. It's about what we do with that power when we get it back. Because if we don't do something that makes a meaningful and tangible difference for working people, we will have gotten to the end of that first administration. 2032 will come around. Donald Trump, for whatever reason, biologically or whatever, he will be gone in some way, and someone's going to fill his vacuum, and they're going to be someone who is just as telegenic, just as charismatic, probably smarter than he is, and they are going to be so much more efficient at destroying our economy, our democracy, all of the things, right? Because it's so much easier to tear something down than it is to build it back up. If we don't have something to point to as a party and say, this is what Democrats did. And I think it has to be Medicare for all. I think it has to be canceling all medical debt. I think it has to be breaking up big medicine. If we can't accomplish that kind of package and delivery to working people, the Republican that fills Trump's shoes is going to be like, look, they screwed up again. They didn't do anything for you because they're in bed with all these special interests. We got to drain the swamp. We got to blah, blah, blah. The same playbook. Trump has been saying the same thing over and over again, despite the fact, obviously, he's lying. Obviously, he's been engaging in more corruption than any other president we've ever seen in this country. But he's able to do that because we are not actually delivering, because of the consequences of the older generation's failure to actually deliver prosperity for everyone in this country, not just their own generation. And so to folks who feel that generational divide, you know, I think it's there. But I don't think it has to be, right? I think if we can all agree that we want prosperity for all, and we want to make sure that young people are able to enter this economy and, you know, enter society in a way that working hard actually does deliver a meaningful life, and we can ensure that seniors are able to age with dignity and to be able to enjoy really high quality healthcare as well as they enter the later years in their lives. Like, all of these things, they are not mutually exclusive, can and should be working together. And I know that because I have voters that are over the age of 65 that are truly some of my strongest supporters, because they agree that this is about everyone together, working together. And so addressing the fact that I think this is more so, this is a class war. It really is. This is what we're fighting right now, is making sure that working people have as much access to the economy in the way that the ultra rich right now do. And so, but it is a really important question and a really important conversation that I've had with voters myself. And I think it's one that we have to approach with honesty and also, you know, just true openness to inviting people into this fight with us as well.
Yeah. Yeah. And so older generations, Coloradoans, we want y'all. We want to work together.
We want you.
And I want to remind, I mentioned this the first time we had you on, but the minimum wage we would need today to match the home buying power of the boomers in the 1970s is $66 an hour.
Yeah.
And it is $7.25, y'all. And it's been $7.25 since 2009. So,
and calling for a $25 minimum wage is like sacrosanct to some people.
Yeah.
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 Colorado has a higher minimum wage, luckily, but yeah.
Still not enough.
Yes. Yeah. So our call to action, you might be able to guess what it is. So we want you to tell everybody you know about primaries that are coming up June 30th. It is so important. If we have not convinced you today in this episode, I don't know what will, but really the real election is June 30th. Obviously we need you to vote in November as well, but we really, really, really need you to turn out in June, just like it is November. This is not just a practice round. It really will decide what kind of Democrats we have representing Colorado and what kind of future we want. And so tell everybody you know about the primary June 30th. Make sure your friends and family vote. Get together, fill out your ballots together, volunteer for a campaign, check out our Left in the Attic ballot guide, which we will have up.
Yeah. And I will give a shout out, by the way, if you want to go above and beyond, get involved with the campaign. In particular, I think, Melat, your campaign has been crushing it thanks to the organizing power, in my opinion, of Democratic Socialists of America, DSA Denver.
The DSA
You have knocked over, I think, by the time this episode comes out, 30,000 doors.
Mm-hmm.
By election day, you're going to knock over 100,000 doors.
Yep.
And these canvases are really fun. There are like field leads that meet up at almost every single park and area across Denver.
Mm-hmm.
You show up, you're meeting people who are really enthusiastic. You go knock doors for a couple hours. And afterwards, there's usually a social at the end. So you can go back. And there's like, again, hundreds of people are doing this every single week. And it's been like some crazy momentum. So if you're looking for community in this time,
come through.
I think that's one of the ways we're also making community.
If you want to meet other folks who you likely will have so much in common with.
Sure.
No, but really, you get fresh air, you get your steps in, you socialize with people. It's really fun. Yeah. Knocking doors is not scary. If anything, it's like one of the most, I don't know, like humanizing, like just community experiences that you can have.
Yeah. And talking to your neighbors is truly the first step in rebuilding our democracy, because it's faltering right now, and it's on us to be able to rebuild it. Yeah.
So run clubs in June is really door knocking. So check out, we will link how to get involved if you want to canvass for Melat. So
Again, if you're watching the video, you can see that Anna has a Hot Girls for Melat shirt. If you want that, you have to go canvass for it. The other thing is, depending on when this episode's released, I will cut this part out or I will leave it in. But save the date for June 14th. DSA is going to have a really, really big canvas. And then we're going to have a special event. Melat Kiros is going to be headlining an event with the one, the only Hasan Piker. So save the date for June 14th. It's going to be another really big day. Melat, thank you for a great episode.
Thank you for having me. It was always so much fun. I can't believe I'm the first repeat guest.
Hey, shout out. One of many. Once you're elected to Congress, you're going to have to come every quarter. Well, if you enjoyed today's episode, please leave us a review on Spotify, Apple Podcasts, wherever else you find your podcast that leave reviews. Leave us an Instagram comment, drop us a voicemail, send us an email. But yeah, thank you for being here. Bye-bye.
Bye.
Bye. Actually, the coolest
with the
thing,
updates.
Yeah.
With the updates.
Melat shows up today, and Deep goes to answer the door, and he's like, "Hello, Congresswoman." And I was like, "Oh, I was just over hearing from the kitchen, eating donuts."